Lord, I want to thank you that you are here. I want to thank you that you are already at work. You have already been speaking, Lord God. You are so wonderful. You are so wise. You have all that we need, Lord God. It's found in you, Lord God. And help us to hear what you have for us today. Help us to hear the voice of your Spirit speaking to us. Holy Spirit, we invite you to share the words of the Father with us, that we might find, even today, this life that we are longing for. That we might discover it for ourselves, and that people might see it in us, and through that the world will be changed. Amen. Amen.
That's a pretty good crowd here today. Better not blow it down. You know, Tracy got more plays than you last week. Need to step up my game. Now hang on, where's the camera today? Better check the angles. How are you looking? Suck in a little bit. Yeah. And now where's Sid sitting? And he always updates his Instagram story with a preach, so better make sure I keep looking at him. Oh no. Oh wait, he's away this week. Man, that's going to reduce my number of likes. Now better see if I can come up with something clever to post. Now while I'm at it, let me post that picture of me with the students from this week so people can see how well we're doing. Oh, actually, I think the one from the week before looks better as there are more people in the room. I'll just post that instead. Yeah, hang on. Making disciples, making a difference. There we go. Well, there's a good group of students here again. Yeah, some new faces. How am I looking? I really must ask Andrew for some advice on what to wear so I can connect with them better. Man, I wish I'd lost that weight this year. Now, what was that great sticky statement I had? Better make sure I get that clear so people can share it later. Wait, what's that? Oh man, has Wolfie gone live again? Man, I can't believe he's on sabbatical and still getting more likes than me. Oh, and Lily's posted with some more groups of people. Man, people are going to be wondering what I do. Better deliver a good one today so then I've spent a lot of time on it. Okay, are we ready? Are we looking? The camera. Yeah, okay. Here we go.
The longing for likes will ruin your life until you live only to please the Father who sees. That's what we're living for today. That's what we're going to be talking about. We are in this series talking about the life that you're longing for. We're talking about how Jesus came that we might have abundant life in the now and in eternity. There is this abundant life to be experienced. But there's a problem. There is this thief who wants to come and to steal and to kill and destroy. The enemy, the accuser of the brothers, the Bible calls him. The enemy of God, the enemy of us. And we are born into this battle whether we know it, whether we realize it or not. Whether we like it or not, we have no choice. This is the life we are born into. But what we do have a choice is whether to experience this abundant life that is available in Jesus. Or whether we pursue the ways, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, of rebellion or religion, which ultimately lead to death. They promise life, they promise this quick fix, but they lead to death. And today, we're going to be talking about one which is most relevant, I think, for our culture. It's this one, this longing for likes. You know, we are in a world that is full of public scrutiny and public attention. We are in this world with a relentless pressure of comparison. And it's so easy and it's so subtle to slip into this way of thinking without even realizing it, whether you're on social media or not. You know, and it's not just we that are concerned about it. It's not just believers that should be concerned about it. In fact, some of these organizations themselves are concerned about what their platforms are doing to people. Instagram are looking at how do they handle this likes culture that they have created, where the people post their pictures and everybody likes it. But then all of a sudden people start posting content based on the number of likes they would get. They find it actually produces worse content. Not only that, but there are big concerns about emotional health and mental health. And Instagram in particular is seen to be one of the worst platforms for actual well-being and mental health. Why? Because people post these pictures of themselves. I was watching a documentary or a little news article this week. And there was a guy who was called Kyrie Stavo. He's got 500,000 followers. He's a young guy, in his 20s probably. Like many young people these days, making a living as a social influencer. What that means is his pure income stream comes from him posting himself online, doing things, checking out some things. People tune in and he gets money from the advertising. That's how he makes his income. But this guy is taken to an extra level. I mean, he started off with posting selfies of himself, and he would take like between 1 and 2 hours editing his selfies, so he was posting the perfect version of himself. I mean, I've seen particularly some of you ladies out there. You have the selfie face, don't you? You know the angles, you know the light, you know how to position yourself. I don't really kind of fully get this sort of stuff, but I've seen it, you know. I can pull my camera out, and I see certain people adopt particular poses. They know how they look best. So this guy does that, but he takes it to another level of editing himself. But now he's taken it to another level, and he's one of the growing numbers of people who are actually having cosmetic surgery to make themselves look like, in their flesh, what the perfect selfie looks like. This is the power of this longing for likes. And this is the danger of this longing for likes, because the truth is we all have this longing in us for attention. We all have this desire to be seen and to be known and for people to acknowledge us and affirm us. And without receiving that from God, we are left all over the world chasing this, looking for this, with this longing for likes that is never fully satisfied. And whether it's Instagram or whether it's doing something to get attention or affirmation, it never delivers. You see, the truth is a lot of these things, the way the thief works is he promises life, but it leads to death. We have this promise of this instant fix, this hit. Even on Instagram, you post yourself and you have the instant dopamine hit when you see the likes. And you find yourself moving from posting content to moving to like checking your notifications and how are people thinking about how I'm doing my life. And it's not just a social media thing, is it? It also occurs in the workplace, on campus. It occurs in your relationships. When somebody hasn't really noticed what you've done for them. And it's like creating this like angst within you. It's like, do you not see how hard I am working? And this longing for likes can be hugely distractive. And Jesus talks about this. He talks about doing things to get attention from others. And he says, beware. And we're going to look at that today. We're going to look at what it says in Matthew, verse 6. Now, Matthew, chapter 6 is part of what we call the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is some of Jesus' longest recorded teaching on this life that he offers and how to experience it. And he goes up in the mountain with, the crowds have been like following him. He goes up the mountain with people who would follow him, and he sits down with the disciples and he teaches them about this abundant life that he's invited them to. And you'll see kind of just big themes before we dip into it. You'll see this big theme that he invites us to a life which is different. It's not the way the world talks about it. It's not the way the world expects it to live. He starts with, blessed are you. Or blessed are you in a number of different situations the world thinks are really bad. But he says, but listen, when that happens to you, you're blessed because your Father. And you see the blessings of God in there. And he talks about how you've heard about this religious way of living, but I tell you that doesn't satisfy. That there's something deeper. He's talking about from your heart. So it's different and it's better and it's from the inside out. And here he comes on to address some particular things about how we live. In particular, to a bunch of Jews, how do you practice your righteousness? How do you do this stuff? In our context, it would be, how are you going to be good Christians? How are you going to do Christian things, good things, godly things, but in a way that is different to the world does it? And he says, he's actually saying there's a way that you do this which looks like it's great and it's godly, but it actually leads to death. And there's a way that you can do this which is good and it's godly, and this is the life that I offer. So he starts off with this big warning, Matthew 6, 1 to 18. Beware, warning, danger. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people. Beware of what? In order to be seen by them. Beware of doing things in order to be seen, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. So he's saying there is a reward, but you won't get it from God if you do these things to be seen. You will not experience the life you're longing for if you do things to be seen. So thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. So this was a thing, apparently, because religious living, holy living, right living was valued in that society and that culture at the time. Because there were poor people and beggars, there were people who would go around and they would get people to kind of sound a trumpet and draw attention to the fact that they were reaching into their purse and giving something to somebody in need. They were doing it not to meet the needs of the person in need. They were doing it to meet their need for affirmation and approval. And look at me, look how good I am because I've given to this person. And fast forward to our culture and our context, and we have the same dangers, don't we? We can start off doing something for the right reason, but we can slip into doing something to be seen, to be noticed. And maybe sometimes even you started off just doing something and then somebody comes along and says, oh man, that's amazing how you do that. Oh, we so appreciate you. Oh, and then look at this guy. Look at what he does. Oh, he's great at that. And before you know it, this kind of flattery, this pride, this kind of, that feels good and I want some more of that, clicks in. And you move from doing something for the right reasons, for doing something to be seen and noticed. And then what happens? Somebody stops noticing you. Or you don't get that affirmation or that approval, that validation. Or you post a picture of yourself serving in church on Instagram and you don't get any likes for it. You end up being empty, don't you? You end up being a little bit bitter, a little bit frustrated. You can do that in the workplace. You're working really hard and nobody notices you. And all of a sudden you become grumpy and you're frustrated. It's like, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. You never even notice anything. This is a journey that we are tempted into of this, and it's this dangerous thing of like being drawn into this longing for likes, this doing things to be seen. What were they doing it for? That they may be praised by others. And Jesus says, truly I say to you, they have their reward. They have received their reward. They're looking for attention of people, and they've got attention of people. But you'll know sometimes if you've ever done something that's received attention and praise, that feel-good factor doesn't always last very long. In fact, sometimes you can find yourself in a situation where people are saying, oh, you're the man, you're the greatest, or oh, we appreciate what you do, but you know that this is like this emptiness inside, that never admitting. You're still searching for something. They have received their reward. So he talks about, okay, let's talk about how do you do your righteous things? How do you, in this case, give to the needy? When you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Don't you love the fact that when Jesus tells us to do something, he brings a promise? It's not just do this. It's like, guys, do this, because then God, there is something better. There is a promise. There is a reward. There is a hope. There is a better way of living. It's not just don't do this and do this. It's like, no, come and live this life which is better. There's an amazing promise. When you do something, your Father sees. He sees in secret, and there's a promise. He will reward you. And when you pray, he moves on for doing things to talk about prayer. When you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Again, we can do these righteous things, even good things. We can do even spiritual things. But there's two ways of doing it. One is for God and to grow in relationship with God, and one is it to be seen and to be noticed. Oh, that's the person with the right prayers. Oh, he must read his Bible so much. Look at what he prays. That they may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And again, this choice, do you do this publicly for likes of others, or you do it in secret for your Father to reward you? And then he goes on, if you're familiar with the passage, he goes on to talk about how you pray. Don't use these big, empty words as the Gentiles do who don't know God. Use these simple words, and he invites us into the Lord's Prayer, which you might be familiar with. Our Father, who art in heaven, holy is your name. This prayer about what we can pray and experience God. And then it goes on to further, when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So you see this pattern of there are these things which you can do. There are these things which you should do. But how do you do them? Do you do them for others? If you do them that way, you will have your reward from their attention, but you will not experience the life that you are longing for. But this is other way. If you do them for your Father who sees in secret, he who sees in secret will reward you publicly. It was my wedding anniversary yesterday. Amanda and I have been married for 23 years. Thank you. She deserves a long service medal. But for many years of our marriage, Amanda would hoover and then leave the vacuum cleaner out when she'd done. And it became one of the, it's not a big thing, it's often little things, isn't it? But I would have this sort of why have you done the hoovering and then just left the vacuum cleaner out? Can you not put it away? So she became the person who hoovered. She wasn't the only person that hoovered, I'll make that clear. But when she hoovered, and I put the vacuum cleaner away. And it was actually several years later that she actually admitted that she left the vacuum cleaner out on purpose. She left the vacuum cleaner out so that I would notice that she had hoovered the place. So that I wouldn't just pass it by, but I could see, oh, honey, you've done a great job of cleaning this place. So she doesn't do that anymore. But the truth is, we all do that in some areas or some ways, don't we? We want people to see what we've done for them. And there is this danger that Jesus is talking about. He says, beware, there's danger ahead. That word literally means pay attention. Pay attention to yourselves and your behavior. Because once you slip into that doing things for other people to notice, you're on a dangerous road, a slippery road that leads to death and destruction. It says pay attention. The truth is, often we want people to pay attention to us. But there are some times where we need to start paying attention to ourselves and the motivations of our heart. And there is a danger. One of the most dangerous things is when you do something and your heart is not in it. You're doing something because you think it's the right thing to do. You're doing something because you should do it. You're doing something because you think God wants me to do that. Or you're doing something because, my Connect group leader will ask me next week, how did that go? I really should do it. But that's always a dangerous place to live when your actions are separate from what's inside your heart, your motivations. That's why Jesus invites us life of transformation, of who we become comes first, and then what we do flows out of that. But there's a danger of doing things when your heart is not in it, and there's a danger of doing things in order to be seen and rewarded. And we can end up doing the wrong things because we want to be seen. That's Rufy's story that he would tell you. He got running with the wrong crowds and doing the wrong stuff because it was good that they liked him and noticed him when he was doing that stuff. It was Rufy the man because he was doing this stuff. But it leads to death. And in this context, Jesus is talking about doing good things, the religious things. But if you do that for other people and for their attention and not for your Father, then that leads to death. See, there is this truth that we all want to be seen. We all need to be seen and rewarded. And the gospel says that we are seen. This is the promise that there is a Father who sees us. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. You know, the truth is there's always things that we will do which will be unseen. If we are living the life that God has called us to, there's work that isn't seen. There's sacrifice that isn't seen. There are some things that are noticed. There's some times when you hit some hard points and you don't know if you can go on. And it's all the strength that you can muster to get up and get about your day and just be available. And we have this promise that in those moments, God sees. He sees and He rewards. And the amazing truth of the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, is that we have a Father who sees us. And if we come to God through faith in Christ, we know that what He sees and His pleasure is not based even on our performance, but it's based on what Jesus has done. My two sons have been watching Friends on Netflix. We'll debate the merits of that various ways later. But there's this one scene where Joey has got a successful job finally, and he gets this letter through, and he loses his job, but he's got this letter through from a credit card company. He's like pre-approved. He's like, I'm pre-approved for this credit card. I've never been pre-approved for anything in my life. The truth of the gospel is that we are pre-approved because of what Jesus has done. The Father sees and rewards because of what Jesus has done, because of who He is. We are pre-approved. And the amazing thing about God the Father is that He's always on watch and He never misses. When you fail, He makes up the difference. And when you do well, he still takes great joy in you and He's pleased. And there's a security and a confidence that we can find in Him that doesn't come from anywhere else. I remember when I first got this powerful revelation that I am a son of God because of Jesus. And as my identity started flowing from that. My parents got divorced when before I was a teenager. And my dad had his insecurities and brokenness in his life, and his dad hadn't been around through his teenage years. And I similarly had some of that in my life through my teenage years as well. And there was this weird thing that would happen when we would get together, is that my dad would kind of be trying to prove himself to me, and I would be kind of trying to prove himself to him. And others might not notice it, but it just came about in this sort of he would talk about what he was doing at work, and he would try and demonstrate that he knew something that I didn't know. And then I would try and demonstrate my knowledge, because I was studying engineering and I was working in telecoms and all of that sort of stuff. And there would be this weird thing that both of us were trying to prove ourselves to one another. And I remember when I really came to this powerful revelation that I am a son of God. There's nothing that I need to do to earn that. That relationship changed radically. Because I didn't need my father to see what I knew or what I could do. I didn't need my earthly father to see my performance. I had a security and a confidence that flowed out of knowing that I have a Father who sees me and who loves me. That is the security that you can have through faith in Christ. Your Father sees. So how do we do that? The Father sees, the Father rewards. How do we build this habit? How do we build this life that we're longing for? Firstly, we do it through secret service. What do you do that only God sees? Because that's the life that Jesus is talking about. He says, do these things so that your others won't see them, but your Father who sees in secret will reward you. What do you do that only God sees? It can be little things. Pray. Absolutely. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, as I was thinking about, one thing that came to mind is like, okay, men, you go to men's toilets, right? They're not always the nicest of places, are they? Let's be honest. I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but sometimes you go in there and they are really messy places. Now, I don't want to kind of do this for affirmation, but I just want to describe sometimes what this looks like in a very practical way. Sometimes what you can do is clean up that toilet so that the next person doesn't have to have the same experience that you did. Yeah? When you go into that toilet, you can do something that nobody will see or appreciate, but you're doing this secret service. And your Father sees what you do in secret and he'll reward. So you can either go and give the person who works there a really hard time. It's like, you need to sort out your toilets. Or you can just leave it for the next person to experience it. Or you can just do something to clear it up a little bit. Whatever it might be, but what do you do that only God sees? Because if you will start developing a life of secret service, you'll start killing off this longing for likes from other people and building this experiencing it in God. See, this longing for likes will ruin your life until you live only to please the Father who always sees. Secret service. Secondly, the secret place. Verse 6 says, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father in secret. How's your time in your secret place going? Because there is a strength that flows from finding that with God in the secret place. I tell you what, sometimes where I live, there's a canal and there's a field over the other side. And I can tell you the number of deeply powerful spiritual times I've had just crossing over the canal, going to the field and pouring out my heart to God. I'm going to be honest, sometimes it doesn't sound very holy. Sometimes it sounds like a lot of frustration directed at God. If you've done new decisions, you'll know what I'm talking about. This process of pouring out your heart, feeling your feelings and discharging them safely and completely, giving your accusations to Him. Sometimes I give myself a really hard time as well. But I tell you what, when I spend time in that secret place with God, there's an approval that comes from Him, there's an acceptance that comes from Him, there's a strength that comes from Him, there's a confidence that comes from Him, and I leave that place differently. Jesus lived that way. In Luke 5, verse 16 to 17, it says this, but now even more the report about him went abroad, and great crowds gathered to hear him and to be healed of their infirmities. But he would often withdraw to desolate places and pray. You see this picture in Jesus' life, that the more attention he got, the more success he got, the more reputation grew, the more intentional he was to withdraw to desolate places where it was just him and God and pray. And I think we can learn from that. I know that it's when I get my busiest in doing things, even good, godly things, that I'm in danger of becoming the emptiest. And I need to prioritize that secret place. You see, the truth is, it's the things that nobody sees which produce the life that everyone wants. And things that no one sees that produce the life that everyone wants. We want this secure, confident, overflowing, generous life. That is the life that we're longing for. But it comes from that secret place. So I want to invite you to respond personally. Where are you experiencing that longing for life and that longing for likes? Where is other people's views of you and their opinions creeping in? Where are your habits to lead you to do things for the wrong reason? And the truth is, I believe even in this place, there's some of you, you're doing stuff and you're just empty inside. God wants to meet you today. Some of you, you've been running a little bit tired. You've been running a little bit empty. Some of you, you're even looking to change your situation, your place. And the truth is that none of those things will answer what you're looking for. None of those things will really change it. The thing that changes it is knowing that you have a Father who sees you. Some of you need to know that today. I just want to say that again for some of you. You have a Father who sees you. And you have a Father who rewards you. Because some of you have been losing faith as well. You're saying, like, God, I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm doing the right things. But it's hard. When is the breakthrough coming? When is the blessing coming? When is this life coming? And God comes to you today as the Father and He says, don't give up. Don't lose hope. I see and I reward. Do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season you will reap a reward. You will reap a harvest if you do not give up. He wants to come to you today with strength and strengthen your faith for that promise.